Hello, guys. How are you? This is Miss Michelle, and today we're going to continue talking about the reproductive system. Hope you're doing great. I'm doing super cool, super great. I'm trying to catch up with all these things that we have to do. And I know that you've been working so hard. I saw some pictures from you doing some homework, doing read works. I would like to know how how have you been? Not only about your health, but I really want to I really want you to share with me if you have had a lot of homework during these days, how has been using the tool of classroom of Google. Is it useful for you? Is it do you like it? You don't like it? I would like to know all that. Please, guys, share with me all your experiences about this coronavirus days. Really, really, I would like to know more about it. Okay, so post on the biology classroom or on the geography classroom. I really want to know how you've been. Okay, so let's start. Today we're going to continue talking, as I said before, we're going to continue talking about the reproductive system. It will be a little bit hard because it will be me talking all the time. I wish I could. I wish I could be in my classroom with all of you, seeing your beautiful faces and sharing with you all the experiences and all the things that happen daily, right? But anyway, we know that this will be for a little while, and hopefully in a couple of weeks we will see each other again. Okay, so let's start where we left. Where we left was on the biology final exam of the second trimester, which most of you did really well. Most of you got over 8, so that was great. Okay, but the two last slides that we talked about was about ovulation. Okay, and if you remember, ovulation is happens during a period of the menstrual cycle of women. Okay, so we're going to start talking about the menstrual cycle, about females menstrual cycle. Okay, and it is important that we remember a little bit what we left on. We mentioned that that women only can ovulate about around 400 eggs during her entire life, right? This is not an exact number, it's an approximate. Okay, so around 400 eggs a woman can ovulate during her entire life. Okay, and we also, we also learned that fertilization takes place in the oviduct. Remember that the oviducts are also called, are also called the fallopian tubes. Okay. Okay, let's continue. The menstrual cycle. So before I start to explain the menstrual cycle, its definition and its phases, please, Eugenio, Orlando, and those that you know that are always distracting with things, please pay a lot of attention, okay? I love you all, guys, but remember, this is important. The good thing about this is that if you miss something, you will be able to pause the video and to rewind it and play it again, right? But please pay a lot of attention. After I have explained this, you will answer an activity as the one that you answered for your geography exam. Although this activity will not be an exam, it's just a classwork. It will be graduated as classwork. Okay, so menstrual cycle. What is the menstrual cycle? It says it is a series of changes in the female reproductive system that includes the producing an egg and preparing the uterus for receiving. Remember, guys, that the main objective of the reproductive system of humans is to produce a life. Remember that the ultimate result of the reproductive process is the formation and union of egg and sperm, the development of the fetus, and the birth of the infant, right? So, why is it important to talk about the menstrual cycle? Because for women, it is important that they can know themselves. It is important that you know, girls, what is going on during this during the menstrual cycle, because it's part of your body, it's part of yourself. And also it's important for boys to understand what women go through this cycle. Okay, if you can see during this picture, I love this picture, that's why I put it on the slide. Okay, this the menstrual cycle is divided into three phases. Okay, the first phase is called the flow phase. Okay, and I'm gonna talk about that in a couple of minutes. Okay, but I want you to see this picture. The first stage is what we've been talking um, during the last weeks. Can you see the image of the brain where it says ovarian cycle? There is a brain and there's a um, small red ball. I don't know if you see it there. That small red ball, remember what is that? Can someone remember? Can someone tell me? I can see your hands up, guys. Please raise your hand if you want to answer. Yes, it's the pituitary gland. Remember that the hypothalamus sends an hormone to the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland is the one in charge to send the FSH. Do you see the arrow, the yellow arrow that it says FSH? Is the one responsible uh, of the production and the start of the menstrual cycle. Okay, and after the yellow arrow, there's a small ball that is growing more and more and more, and then there's like a bigger ball that it says estrogen, and then the estrogen is heated by LH. Do you see the guy, the pink guy with LH on his chest that is kicking the estrogen ball, and there's a smack, and then there's something out of his mouth. That something out of his mouth is the egg, and that part of the menstrual cycle is what we called ovulation. Remember that between the 13th and the 15th day of the menstrual cycle is when the egg comes out from the ovary, okay? And to that process is called ovulation, okay? Now, once that the egg comes out, what sorry guys, what was around the egg was it is called, corpus luteum. And we mentioned this before, and I will mention it again because this is a very important part for the females, the corpus luteum. And to that phase of the menstrual cycle is called luteal phase. Okay, this is the first part of the picture here. Now I want you to see the picture that is below where it says uterine cycle. Okay, uterine cycle, uterine comes from the word uterus. Okay, do you remember that the uterus has this lining that during the during menstruation it sheds and it goes down the female's body? Okay, so when the menstrual cycle starts, the uterine cycle also starts. And look where it says there. It says proliferative phase. Influenced by estrogen, the thickness of the endometrium rapidly increases. Okay? And then what happens next during the luteal phase? The secretory phase Influenced by progesterone, the lining becomes highly vascular and endometrious. We're going to talk about this more in the next slides. Hopefully you don't have any questions till now. If you do, you can post any question that you have on this video, okay? Or on the biology classroom or on this assignment. Perfect? Any questions? No? Yes? Okay. I'm going to continue. So, in this slide says the menstrual cycle begins during puberty, during the age that you are right now, girls. And it continues for 30 or 40 years until menopause. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard about this word, menopause. What does this word mean in Spanish? Nobody? Okay. Menopausia. See? Yes, I asked what does it mean in Spanish, okay? I didn't ask for the definition. Good. So, what happens during menopause? It says the female stops releasing eggs and the secretion of female hormone decreases. So, I'm sorry again. Females only can have their menstrual cycle during 30 and 40 years. During these 30 and 40 years, they will be able to get pregnant, okay? Once they get into this stage of menopause, pause is like pausa, literal. So their menstrual cycle will stop releasing eggs from their ovaries. And here is where menopause occurs. Okay? What is next? Okay, let's start with the different phases of the menstrual cycle. The first phase of the menstrual cycle is called flow phase or menstrual flow, okay? And the menstrual cycle starts on day 1 with flow phase. What happens here? It says it is the shedding of blood, tissue fluid, mucus and epithelial cells that made up the lining of the uterus, the endometrium. So I want you to see these pictures, okay? In the first part of this picture, it says ovarian cycle. It's a different picture from the one that you see that was on the other slide. Okay, during day 1, a new oocyte starts to develop the egg inside of it. Remember that the oocytes are undeveloped eggs. Okay, and during the first day of the flow phase, a new oocyte starts to develop. Okay, what happens during the day 1? The endometrium sheds. What does that mean? Blood of the lining of the uterus come out of the female's body. Okay, it's where it happens. Can you see the uterus where it says menses? That's what happens. The endometrium, the lining of the uterus starts shedding. Okay, now that's the reason why females start getting contractions. It says contractions of the uterine muscle help expel the uterine lining, and can cause discomfort in some females. Can you see the image of this poor girl? She's having contractions. Contraction is what we call cramps, or in Spanish are cólicos. See? Sorry. And again, the reason why females have cramps or contractions is because the uterine lining is removing, okay? El endometrio o la uterine lining que se forma se empieza a desprender. Y ese desprendimiento es lo que causa las pequeñas contracciones, o en español conocidas como cólicos. Okay? Let's continue. Pay attention. Are you still here? Or are you getting distracted with your cell phone, guys, with your Instagram, Facebook? Pay attention, please, please, please. Okay? Let's continue. Menstrual flow ends by day 5 of the cycle. So this phase only lasts around 5 days. Okay, flow phase only lasts around 5 days. And if you can see in the next slide, this is what happens with the uterus inner lining. It starts shedding. Do you see it? That menstrual fluid, what you can see at the bottom of the uterus in the cervix, is the uterus that is shedding. Sorry. Yeah, is the inner lining that is shedding. Okay. Okay, let's continue with the next phase, the follicular phase. The follicular phase lasts from around day 6 to day 14. Now we're talking about cycles of 28 days. Most of the females' menstrual cycles lasts around 28 days, but it can vary. It can be between 28, 30 days. It depends on each woman, and it also depends on the age, okay, of each woman. Now, what happens during this follicular phase? It says a follicle containing a primary oocyte continues to develop. It secretes estrogen, which stimulates the repair of the endometrial lining of the uterus. Remember that we have this hormone that is released from the hypothalamus. Can you see it on the picture? And again, this hormone is received by the pituitary gland, and then the pituitary gland releases other two hormones, the FSH and the LH. Okay, now look at the arrows that are on that picture. The FSH has 4 different arrows, and these arrows are pointing to the follicles. Do you remember what a follicle is? If not, I'm gonna read again the definition of a follicle so we can be all in the same page, okay? A follicle is a group of epithelial cells that surround a developing egg. Remember that females we born with a certain number of oocytes. What is an oocyte? Do you remember what's an oocyte? I'm so sorry, guys. I cannot see your hands up because I'm over here, you're over there. But I'm imagining that maybe Dana, Melissa, Elia, Georgina, Maria Celeste, who else? Well, this is a very participative classroom. Maybe Moshe also. They're raising their hands. I didn't want to answer my question and I just forgot what I asked. I'm so sorry. We were talking about the oocytes. What is an oocyte? It's an undeveloped egg. Okay? So, as you see in this picture, the production of FSH will help to the development of the follicle, what is around the egg. Okay? So, at the same time, this follicle will help to the production of estrogen. Okay, so what is next? It says the increase in estrogen slows the production of FSH and LH. Okay, so while the follicle is developing during this phase around the egg, the production of FSH and LH it slows. Okay, so remember we talked about this before. As the estrogen increases, the FSH and the LH decreases. Okay, and then it says just before ovulation, just before the egg is released, an estrogen levels peak, which causes an increase in the release of LH. Do you remember the first image that we saw on the slide where there was a boy, a pink boy with an LH on its chest, on his chest, sorry, and it was kicking the ball, and the ball was puking the egg, well, that's what happens during the follicular phase. When estrogen levels peak, it says when estrogen levels peak, there's an increase of LH, and this increase of LH is what causes the follicle to rupture, and the and then the egg is released from the follicle and it goes directly to the oviduct. And here is when ovulation occurs. So question, in which phase of the menstrual cycle ovulation occurs? It occurs during this follicular phase. Okay, the growing follicle and the ovulation occurs during the follicular phase. What else? What else? What else happens here? Estrogen levels peaks. Estrogen level peak, and also this causes the increase of LH. This peak of estrogen and LH will produce a rupture of the follicle, and by consequence, the egg will go out from the ovary and will go to the oviduct. Okay. Now we already learned flow phase, now follicular phase. Then what happens? This is the final phase of menstrual cycle, the luteal phase, and it's around day 15 and day 28. Okay, now look at this image. This image is an ovary, and this image can, in this image, you can see how a primary follicle develops the follicle until the rupture of the follicle. See, do you see the egg there? Once the egg goes out of the follicle, what happens to the follicle? Well, the follicle is not a follicle anymore. The follicle, it converts into the corpus luteum. That's why this phase is called luteal phase, because now the follicle is not a follicle, now it's changed to a corpus luteum. Now, what is a corpus luteum? In the next picture, you can see it. The corpus luteum, yellow hormone secreting body in the female reproductive system. It is formed in an ovary at the site of a follicle or sac that has matured and released its egg. It's like the old follicle, okay? It's like the grandpa. The follicle was young, was strong. Now that the follicle doesn't have an egg, now we will call it corpus luteum. Why the corpus luteum is important? Because the corpus luteum secretes estrogens and progesterone, which both of them are needed for the female's reproductive system. Okay. In the next slide says the latter hormone causes changes in the uterus that make it more suitable for implementation of the fertilized egg and the nourishment of the embryo. Do you remember what nourishment is? I wish I could see your hands up and I can call some of you and say, Cesar, can you answer the question? Because I know that all of you or most of you know what nourishment is. The nourishment of the embryo means la alimentación del embrión, la alimentación del bebé. What happens if the endometrium doesn't get thicker? Well, if the endometrium doesn't get thicker, the fertilized egg will not be able to find a suitable place for its implantation. Okay? And if this doesn't occur, the fertilized egg will not be able to develop correctly, and probably it can go out of the female's body during menstruation, during the first phase, during the flow phase. Okay. Now, if the egg is not fertilized, the corpus luteum becomes inactive after 10 and 14 days, and menstruation occurs. Remember the corpus luteum? It was the yellow hormone secreting body in the female's reproductive system, and it is responsible to secretes estrogens and progesterone. Okay, so once that egg is not fertilized, what will happen? Well, the flow phase will start again, and this will start to the next menstrual cycle, and menstruation will occur. So finally, this image summarizes all what I just explained, you guys. It was a little bit hard because, again, you're not seeing me, I'm not seeing you, I'm not seeing if you're paying attention or not. Hopefully you're paying attention, okay? And well, this was everything for today. Okay, I just want you to look at this last picture that was one of the first pictures that I showed you. This picture summarizes the menstrual cycle as the flow phase, follicular phase, and the luteal phase. Okay? Uh, Look, if you need to watch this video again, watch it again. If you have any question, post your questions on the biology classroom. And after you feel very sure about all this topic, please take the assignment of the menstrual cycle that is already posted on your biology classroom. Also, you will need to write all these notes, all these slides on your notebook, okay? And I will check your notes as soon as we go back again to school. Okay, this was everything for today. Hopefully, you have liked this class. I miss you all, guys. Hopefully, you're doing great. Remember to keep at home, and don't forget that this will not last forever, okay? So, hashtag more science, less laziness, hashtag coronavirus. We're stronger than you. We're stronger together. Okay, guys, have a great day. See you later. Bye.